tools at our disposal.
Finance guru, the one and only Roddy from Cougar. Hello there, Roddy. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic, thanks, Phil.
Good. All right, so it's our monthly catch-up. We usually speak about interest rates.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about quantitative easing. I've got it out of the way again. So £75 billion is being printed. What do we do? Do we queue up at the Bank of England to get a little chunk of that ourselves?
Wouldn't it be nice if we did? It'd be great to just hop along with and say, I've come for my share. And that would probably work out quite a tidy little sum for everybody as well, wouldn't it? But so unfortunately, it's definitely not going to work that way. They're designed to, if you like, stimulate confidence in the economy. I don't think it's going to filter down to individuals per se, but what it should do in theory is enable the banks again to lend money, because there's a fresh resource of money, if you like, for them to lend, instead of buying what they call gilts, which are government-backed securities.
Okay, so literally the banks get handed all of this cash and they can then hand that out to businesses, whatever.
Well, that's the theory, you see. In theory, you get that cash in and then you lend it out to businesses, but the problem we're faced with now is that the banks are facing a difficult set of decisions themselves. They've still got to keep making sure that they're financially stable. So, for example, when we think of banks that may have lent to other organisations in Europe, they'll be worried that they may not get their money back. So any new money going from the government to British banks that have lent abroad, those banks possibly are going to think to themselves, well, I'm not going to lend this money, I'm going to keep it in gilts, so it's safer, and that I've got then my balance sheet, if you like, my housekeeping all in order in case there's some great big default in Europe happening. So I'm not sure the money's going to filter down to businesses anyway, and if it does, yes, you're right, they can lend it to whoever they want on commercial terms in the hope that that will create jobs and stimulate the economy, contribute more taxes, and then for George Osborne to be able to say, see, told you so, it's working.
See, what I
Did that sound convincing?
It sounded convincing, but the only reason we've got £75 billion being printed, and from the sounds of it, what you're saying is it's being printed and being put in nice packs and everything, going onto a pallet and then going into various banks, and it will stay there. It's actually not doing any good at all.
Well, I think, do you know what? That is a fantastic little summary you've just given there. You're doing this better than I am, because in reality, that's almost what is happening. You know, it's hard for me to be very precise and say where every single pound is going to be spent, but you can rely on me to tell you, as I see things, that the British banks are faced with this dilemma at the moment about European banks that they may have lent money to, property deals, anything, and not being able to meet their obligations. So, the banks are always being told you've got to get your house in order. Now, to get that house in order, all we have to do is take this back to what it's like for you and me at home. You look at your credit card statements at the end of the month, you look at your gas bills, your utility bills, and what you should be trying to achieve every month is that actually you're in credit, not in debit. Now, our banks, we know, have been in deficit or debit for a long time, so they're trying to pay down that debt. And at times like this, I think they'll be inclined to want to make sure, if they have got bad debts overseas, some of that money on the pallet gets salted away into what I said is gilts, which are really just money secured by government.
Okay. Interest rates, well, it doesn't really matter, really, does it? Because they're going to be like that for the next 37 months, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the thing about all our conversations is they do sound a bit bar humbugish, but the reality is these are serious times. These are difficult issues. They're intensely complex. The amounts of money involved, I find mind-boggling. I'm sure there are thousands of listeners to your program that absolutely find it mind-boggling. But in reality, it's important to us all, because that money does need to filter back down into the economy to stimulate jobs, to stimulate enterprise, to get entrepreneurs to take risk, because it does tend to increase confidence. People do feel a bit happier then about their futures and a bit more optimistic. But the danger is, although it's not going to be talked about today, because today, you know, it's time for politicians to be eulogistic and talk about these initiatives they're taking. But in reality, I'm saying there is this cloud looming over this little issuance of 75 billion called the European question, and until that's resolved by European politicians, then I think some of that money is going to take some time to work its way into the system.
Good to speak to you, Roddy. As always, have a good one. See you next month.
Thanks, Phil.
Bye now. Roddy there from Cougar, and his thoughts on the economy at the moment. BBC